Rain drizzled over the empty industrial district just after midnight, turning the cracked pavement into sheets of black glass. Blue police lights flashed across abandoned warehouses while yellow tape fluttered in the cold wind. In the center of the deserted parking lot lay a man in an expensive suit, motionless beneath the rain. His name was Daniel Cross. The first patrol officer on scene had expected another gang shooting. The city had seen enough of them. But the moment detectives arrived, that assumption began to crumble. Detective Ryan Cole stepped under the tape and studied the body without speaking. Daniel lay on his back beside a luxury sedan. 7 bullet wounds marked his chest and abdomen. The shots were tight, controlled, and deliberate. There was no sign of panic, no wild spray of gunfire. This wasn't random, Ryan finally said. A crime scene technician glanced up. Professional. Maybe. Or personal. The distinction mattered. Ryan crouched beside the victim. Daniel's watch was still on his wrist. His wallet remained untouched. Thousands of dollars sat in the car's center console. Robbery was immediately eliminated. Rainwater mixed with blood and flowed slowly toward a storm drain. Who is he? Ryan asked. Business owner, replied Detective Laura Bennett, his partner. Owns several logistics companies. Clean record. Married. No known gang connections. Ryan frowned. Clean records did not usually end with 7 bullets in an empty parking lot. As forensic photographers documented the scene, Ryan walked toward Daniel's vehicle. The driver's door stood open. Nothing appeared stolen. A takeout coffee sat untouched in the cup holder. The engine was still warm. He arrived and got out willingly, Ryan said. Laura nodded. Looks that way. Then he probably knew why he was here. The possibility settled heavily between them. Hours later, the rain finally eased. Detectives interviewed nearby workers, security guards, and anyone who might have seen something. Nobody had heard the shots. Nobody had seen a suspect. The parking lot felt isolated from the rest of the city, hidden among warehouses that emptied after sunset. Too perfect. Back at headquarters, Ryan began reviewing the first reports. Daniel Cross appeared ordinary on paper. Successful career. Stable finances. Charitable donations. Community awards. The kind of man whose photograph appeared beside headlines about local business success. Yet someone had executed him with ruthless precision. Ryan stared at Daniel's smiling family portrait on his computer screen. What are we missing? He muttered. The question lingered long after midnight. The following afternoon, the medical examiner confirmed what Ryan already suspected. The victim had been shot 7 times at close range. The killer had continued firing even after the first fatal wound. Overkill. Not the signature of a detached assassin. The signature of anger. That evening, a technician entered Ryan's office carrying a flash drive. We recovered footage from a warehouse camera overlooking the parking lot. Ryan sat upright immediately. Tell me it's useful. See for yourself. The grainy video appeared on the monitor. The empty parking lot filled the screen. Minutes passed. Then a figure emerged from the shadows. A person dressed in dark clothing and wearing a mask. The individual took position beside the exact parking space Daniel would later use. And waited. For nearly 20 minutes. Ryan's pulse quickened as the realization hit him. Which meant this meeting had been arranged in advance. Daniel had driven into a trap, believing he was about to meet someone he trusted. Someone close enough to lower his guard completely that night. The shooter hadn't followed Daniel. The shooter had known he was coming. The image of the masked shooter lingered in Detective Ryan Cole's mind long after he left the office. Someone had known exactly where Daniel Cross would be that night. The meeting had been planned, the execution deliberate. Now Ryan needed to answer a more difficult question. Who had Daniel trusted enough to meet alone? The investigation began where most homicide investigations did, with family. Daniel's suburban home sat in a quiet neighborhood lined with trees and neatly trimmed lawns. Nothing about it suggested secrets or danger. It looked like the home of a man who had built a successful life and protected it carefully. Emma Cross opened the door before Ryan could knock twice. She looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, and grief seemed to weigh on every movement. Family photographs decorated the hallway behind her. In nearly every picture, Daniel stood smiling beside her. Ryan introduced himself and offered condolences before beginning the interview. "Tell me about your husband," he said gently. Emma stared at a framed photograph on the fireplace. "Daniel was kind," she answered. "He worked too much sometimes, but everything he did was for us." "Did he seem worried recently?" She hesitated. "Not worried. Maybe distracted." "Distracted how?" "He spent more time on his phone. Sometimes he'd leave the room to answer calls. I assumed it was business." Ryan noted the response carefully. "Did he have enemies?" Emma immediately shook her head. "No. Daniel wasn't that kind of person." The answer matched what nearly everyone else told investigators. Friends described Daniel as generous and respected. Employees called him fair and professional. Business partners praised his honesty. Every interview painted the same picture. A devoted husband. A successful businessman. A man nobody seemed to hate. Yet somebody had fired 7 bullets into his body. The contradiction bothered Ryan. Over the next several days, detectives examined Daniel's financial records. At first, everything appeared normal. Income, investments, expenses, nothing unusual. Then Laura Bennett found something strange. "Take a look at this." Ryan studied the report she handed him. Several cash withdrawals appeared every month. Not enormous amounts. Just enough to avoid attention. The pattern stretched back almost 2 years. "Any explanation?" Ryan asked. Laura shook her head. "None so far." The withdrawals were followed by another discovery. Phone records showed repeated gaps in Daniel's schedule. On certain evenings, he left work without informing assistants or family members. His vehicle traveled to different locations around the city before returning home hours later. No business meetings were documented. No official appointments existed. It was as though Daniel had been living a second life hidden inside his ordinary one. Ryan began reconstructing the missing evenings. Piece by piece. Location by location. A pattern slowly emerged. Many of the trips ended near restaurants, parks, and quiet cafes far from Daniel's office and home. Places chosen for privacy. Not business. Personal. The realization changed the direction of the investigation. Late one evening, Ryan sat alone reviewing security footage collected from several businesses. Most recordings revealed nothing useful. Then one video caught his attention. The footage showed Daniel arriving outside a small cafe 18 months earlier. A few moments later, a woman approached. She wasn't Emma. The two embraced. Not casually. Intimately. Ryan watched the recording twice. Then 3 times. His stomach tightened. Additional footage from different dates revealed the same woman again and again. Different locations. Different months. Always together. Laughing. Talking. Holding hands. Meeting in secret. The relationship clearly extended far beyond friendship. Ryan leaned back in his chair as the full timeline became visible. These encounters had continued for nearly 2 years without anyone discovering them. Daniel Cross, the devoted husband everyone admired, had been hiding a secret. And somewhere in the city was a woman who might know exactly why he ended up dead in that parking lot. Ryan stared at her image frozen on the screen. The next morning, he ordered detectives to identify her. Within hours, a name appeared in the case file. Sophia Malik. The name Sophia Malik transformed the investigation overnight. By the following afternoon, Detective Ryan Cole sat inside a quiet interview room waiting for the woman whose face had appeared repeatedly beside Daniel Cross in months of security footage. Every secret meeting, every unexplained absence, seemed to lead back to her. When the door opened, Sophia entered cautiously. She appeared younger than Ryan expected. Her expression carried the exhaustion of someone who had not slept properly in days. The moment she sat down, her eyes drifted toward the case file resting on the table. "You know why you're here?" Ryan asked. She nodded slowly. "Because of Daniel." The sound of his name seemed to hurt. Ryan studied her carefully. Grief was visible, but so was fear. What was your relationship with him? Sophia remained silent for several seconds. Then she answered, I loved him. The confession hung heavily in the room. Ryan expected denial. Instead, he received honesty. She explained that she and Daniel had met nearly 2 years earlier during a business conference. What began as friendship gradually evolved into something deeper. Daniel had spoken often about leaving his complicated life behind and starting over. He wasn't living the life people thought he was, Sophia said quietly. What does that mean? He was trapped. Ryan leaned forward. Trapped by who? Sophia looked away. I don't know. The answer felt incomplete. As the interview continued, Ryan learned that Daniel's behavior had changed dramatically during the final months before his death. He became distracted, nervous, and increasingly paranoid. At first I thought it was stress, Sophia explained. Then he started noticing things. Things. Cars parked outside places we visited. The same faces appearing repeatedly. Strange calls with nobody speaking. Ryan wrote notes as she talked. Did he report any of this? No. Why not? Because he thought nobody would believe him. The room fell quiet. For the first time, Ryan saw a version of Daniel completely different from the successful businessman described by friends and family. This Daniel was frightened. Desperately frightened. Sophia reached into her purse and removed an old photograph. It showed her and Daniel sitting beside a river months earlier. Daniel was smiling, but his eyes seemed distant. He gave me this the week before he died, she said. Did he say anything? She hesitated. Then nodded. He told me if something happened to him, the answers were hidden in his past. Ryan immediately focused on the statement. What answers? Sophia's hands tightened around the photograph. I can't tell you. Why not? Because I promised him. Frustration crept into Ryan's voice. A man was executed with 7 bullets. If you know something, now is the time. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. Then help me understand. For a moment, it appeared she might finally reveal everything. Instead, she lowered her gaze. There are people involved who are dangerous. The warning sounded genuine. Ryan sensed she was protecting someone, or perhaps protecting herself. The interview stretched into another hour. Every answer revealed new pieces of the mystery while creating even larger questions. By the end, Ryan was convinced Sophia knew far more than she admitted. As she prepared to leave, her phone vibrated on the table. She glanced at the screen. The color drained instantly from her face. What is it? Ryan asked. Sophia couldn't speak. With trembling fingers, she turned the phone toward him. A single message stared back from an unknown number. Keep talking and you'll end up beside him. Ryan realized the killer was watching far closer than expected. The threatening message changed everything. Someone had known Sophia Malik was speaking to investigators. Whether the sender was the killer or an accomplice, one fact became impossible to ignore. Daniel Cross's murder was connected to secrets that were still being protected. As detectives traced the anonymous number, another name repeatedly surfaced in the investigation. Marcus Cross, Daniel's younger brother. The relationship between the two men had been shattered for years. What once appeared to be a close family bond had collapsed after a bitter dispute over their father's inheritance. Court documents revealed arguments, legal battles, and accusations that divided the family permanently. When Ryan reviewed the records, he found something even more troubling. 3 months before Daniel's death, Marcus had publicly threatened him during a heated confrontation. The threat immediately pushed him near the top of the suspect list. 2 days later, Ryan and Laura Bennett drove to Marcus's home. Unlike Daniel's polished suburban neighborhood, Marcus lived alone in a modest house on the edge of the city. The property showed signs of neglect. Weeds covered the front yard, and peeling paint lined the porch. Marcus answered the door looking irritated rather than surprised. I figured you'd come eventually, he said. Ryan introduced himself and stepped inside. The atmosphere felt tense from the beginning. Marcus folded his arms. So which part interests you? The inheritance fight or the fact half the city thinks I killed my brother? You threatened him, Ryan replied. Marcus laughed bitterly. People say things when they're angry. You told witnesses he'd regret what he did to you. And now he's dead. Convenient, isn't it? Ryan watched him carefully. There was anger in Marcus's voice, but anger alone did not make a murderer. Tell me about your relationship with Daniel. Marcus walked toward the kitchen window. There wasn't a relationship. What happened? For several moments, he remained silent. Then years of resentment poured out. Marcus described how their father's estate had divided the family. He believed Daniel manipulated legal documents to secure control of the business empire while leaving him with almost nothing. Whether the accusations were true remained unclear. What was obvious was the damage they caused. I hated him, Marcus admitted. The honesty caught Ryan's attention. Hated him enough to kill him. Marcus turned sharply. No. The answer came without hesitation. Ryan continued pressing. Then why threaten him? Because I wanted him scared. Was he scared? Marcus paused. The question seemed to strike something deeper. Actually, yes. Ryan exchanged a glance with Laura. What do you mean? Marcus lowered himself into a chair. The last time I saw Daniel, he wasn't acting like himself. How so? He kept looking over his shoulder. He barely listened during our argument. Marcus rubbed his hands together. It was strange. Almost like he expected someone to appear. Ryan felt the investigation shifting again. Sophia had described similar behavior. Paranoia. Fear. The feeling of being watched. What did Daniel say? Ryan asked. Marcus hesitated. Then he spoke quietly. He said somebody was pulling strings behind the scenes. The room fell silent. Who? I don't know. Marcus looked directly at Ryan. But whatever was happening, it started long before he died. The statement lingered heavily in the air. For a moment, Ryan considered the possibility that Marcus was telling the truth. Then he asked the most important question. Where were you the night Daniel was murdered? Without saying a word, Marcus stood and retrieved a folder from a nearby cabinet. He placed several documents on the table. Hotel receipts. Security logs. Flight records. Ryan examined them carefully. Every record told the same story. At the exact time Daniel Cross was executed, Marcus Cross was attending a business conference more than 600 miles away. And the evidence appeared impossible to dispute. Marcus Cross's alibi forced investigators back to the beginning. The evidence proving he was hundreds of miles away during Daniel's murder appeared airtight. Ryan Cole left the meeting frustrated but convinced of one thing: the killing was larger than a family feud. Marcus had admitted his hatred, yet the facts suggested someone else had pulled the trigger. The question was who? Over the following week, detectives dug deeper into Daniel Cross's personal records. Phone logs, emails, financial documents, and archived messages were reviewed one by one. Ryan hoped to uncover the connection between Daniel's growing fear and the person who had been waiting for him in that parking lot. The breakthrough arrived unexpectedly. A digital forensic specialist entered Ryan's office carrying a thick folder. You need to see this. Inside were dozens of emails recovered from an old account Daniel rarely used. At first glance, the messages appeared harmless. Then Ryan started reading. The earliest emails were strangely personal. The sender discussed Daniel's daily routines, favorite restaurants, and business meetings. Some details were so specific that they could only have come from someone watching him closely. As the months passed, the tone changed. Admiration became resentment. Resentment became obsession. One email read, "You don't deserve her." Another stated, "She'll eventually see what you really are." Ryan frowned. Who sent these? The technician shook his head. Every account was anonymous. They're routed through multiple servers. Ryan continued reading. The messages became increasingly disturbing. The sender seemed fixated not only on Daniel but also on Sophia Malik. Detailed descriptions of their meetings appeared throughout the correspondence. Dates, locations, conversations. Someone had been observing them for a very long time. Ryan immediately contacted Sophia and arranged another interview. When she arrived, he showed her copies of the emails. Her expression darkened with every page. "I've seen some of these before," she admitted. Ryan looked up. "You never mentioned that." "I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Sophia folded her arms tightly. "Daniel received them first. Then I started getting similar messages." The revelation stunned Ryan. "What kind of messages?" "Warnings. Accusations. Threats." She swallowed hard. "The sender blamed me for destroying lives." Ryan felt the investigation moving in a different direction. This no longer resembled a professional assassination motivated by money or business. It felt personal. Deeply personal. Someone appeared emotionally invested in Daniel and Sophia's relationship. The messages reflected jealousy, anger, and an unhealthy fixation that had grown over years. Ryan returned to the evidence with renewed urgency. Among Daniel's belongings, investigators discovered several printed letters hidden inside a locked drawer at his office. Unlike the emails, these letters had been physically delivered. The contents were even more disturbing. Every page contained accusations, warnings, and references to betrayal. One line appeared repeatedly. "You stole what never belonged to you." The phrase haunted Ryan. By now, he believed the killer viewed Daniel not simply as a target but as an enemy. Someone nursing a personal grievance. Someone consumed by obsession. Forensic teams immediately processed the letters for evidence. Most contained nothing useful. No DNA. No clear traces. No identifying marks. Then late one evening, Laura Bennett rushed into Ryan's office carrying a laboratory report. "We found something." Ryan stood instantly. "What?" "A fingerprint." His pulse quickened. "Do we have a match?" Laura placed the report on his desk. "We do." Ryan scanned the document. The moment he reached the name, confusion swept across his face. That couldn't be right. He checked it again. The match remained the same. The fingerprint belonged to Amir Rahman, a former business associate connected to Daniel's company years earlier. Ryan looked up slowly. According to official records, Amir Rahman had died in a warehouse fire nearly 6 years ago. Yet somehow his fingerprint had just appeared on a threatening letter sent to Daniel Cross. The fingerprint report sat on Ryan Cole's desk long after midnight. He had reviewed it repeatedly, hoping the result would somehow change. It never did. Every comparison confirmed the same impossible conclusion. The print belonged to Amir Rahman, a former business partner connected to Daniel Cross. The problem was simple. Amir Rahman was supposed to be dead. 6 years earlier, a warehouse fire had destroyed one of Daniel's storage facilities on the outskirts of the city. Investigators at the time concluded that Amir died inside the burning structure. The case closed quickly, the body was never fully identified, and the tragedy faded from public attention. Now Ryan was beginning to suspect a terrible mistake had been made. By sunrise, detectives reopened every file connected to the fire. Old witness statements, insurance claims, police reports, and photographs covered an entire conference table. Laura Bennett found the first inconsistency. The body was identified using personal belongings, she said. Ryan looked up. No dental records. None. No DNA confirmation. Laura shook her head. The deeper they looked, the worse it became. The original investigation had relied heavily on assumptions. The fire had been intense enough to destroy critical evidence, allowing authorities to accept the easiest explanation. Amir Rahman had been declared dead. But nobody had truly proven it. As the days passed, a darker story emerged. Years before the fire, Amir and Daniel had built a logistics company together. Former employees described them as ambitious, intelligent, and nearly inseparable. They expanded rapidly, earning millions and attracting powerful investors. Then everything collapsed. Financial records uncovered by Ryan revealed missing funds, suspicious transactions, and internal accusations of fraud. Within months, authorities launched investigations into the company. Amir carried most of the blame. His reputation was destroyed. His assets disappeared. His marriage ended. Several witnesses claimed he insisted he had been framed. At the time, few people believed him. Ryan interviewed a retired accountant who had worked for the company during its final years. Amir was obsessed with finding the truth, the man said. What truth? Who set him up? Ryan leaned forward. Did he suspect Daniel? The accountant hesitated. Eventually, yes. The answer lingered heavily in the room. As investigators followed the trail, they discovered that Amir had spent months before the warehouse fire accusing Daniel of betrayal. Emails revealed bitter arguments. Lawsuits followed. Friends described a relationship poisoned by resentment. Then came the fire. And Amir vanished. Ryan no longer viewed Daniel's murder as an isolated crime. The pieces were beginning to connect. Betrayal. Revenge. Obsession. Every path seemed to lead back to a conflict that had started nearly a decade earlier. The most troubling discovery arrived from financial investigators. Several months after Amir's supposed death, small withdrawals appeared from accounts secretly linked to him. The transactions continued for years and stretched across multiple cities. Someone had been using the money. Someone alive. The evidence strongly suggested Amir survived and disappeared intentionally. Late one evening, Ryan received a call from a detective reviewing old leads connected to Daniel's final days. We found a witness, the detective said. Ryan immediately sat upright. A witness to what? A man reported seeing someone near the parking lot before the shooting. Ryan's pulse quickened. Did he get a good look? Good enough. The following morning, the witness arrived at headquarters. He studied several photographs placed carefully across a table. Ryan watched silently. The man examined each image before stopping suddenly. His finger landed on one photograph. That's him, he said with certainty. Ryan looked down. The picture showed Amir Rahman. The witness swallowed hard. I saw him near the parking lot a few hours before the murder. For the first time, investigators had more than theories and old records. They had an eyewitness placing a dead man at the scene of Daniel Cross's execution. And the hunt for him had officially begun. The eyewitness identification transformed Amir Rahman from a ghost story into the primary suspect in Daniel Cross's murder. For Detective Ryan Cole, the case suddenly felt less like a puzzle and more like a hunt. Yet one question continued to trouble him. If Amir had killed Daniel, why wait so many years? The answer seemed buried somewhere in the past. Ryan assembled a timeline covering nearly a decade of business records, court filings, and personal correspondence. Piece by piece, the relationship between Daniel and Amir began to emerge with painful clarity. Before the accusations, before the warehouse fire, and before the murder, they had been partners. Not merely business partners. Friends. Former employees described the two men as inseparable during the company's rise. Daniel handled investor relations and public strategy. Amir managed operations and expansion. Together they transformed a small logistics business into a thriving enterprise. People admired them, trusted them, expected them to succeed. Then everything changed. The first signs of trouble appeared when large sums of money began disappearing from company accounts. Internal audits revealed unexplained transfers, falsified invoices, and hidden debts. The scandal exploded quickly. Investors demanded answers. Authorities launched investigations. Media outlets published stories questioning the company's leadership. Someone had to take responsibility. According to official records, that person became Amir Rahman. Ryan reviewed old interview footage recorded during the investigation years earlier. Amir appeared exhausted and furious as reporters surrounded him outside a courthouse. I didn't steal anything, Amir insisted. Nobody listened. Public opinion turned against him almost immediately. His reputation collapsed. Business partners abandoned him. Friends disappeared. Even members of his own family began distancing themselves from the scandal. Meanwhile, Daniel emerged largely untouched. His public image survived. His career recovered. His influence continued growing. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Ryan met with a retired attorney who had represented Amir during part of the financial investigation. The lawyer's office was filled with dusty files and faded certificates. "What do you remember about Amir?" Ryan asked. The attorney sighed. He was convinced someone framed him. Did he ever identify who? Not at first. Ryan leaned forward. And later? The lawyer hesitated. Eventually he blamed Daniel. The answer came quietly. Why? He discovered transactions requiring authorization from both partners. Ryan's attention sharpened. But only Amir was charged. Exactly. The implication lingered in the air. Ryan left the meeting with growing doubts about Daniel's innocence. While nothing justified murder, the history between the two men appeared far more complicated than anyone initially believed. Over the following days, investigators uncovered additional evidence supporting Amir's suspicions. Several witnesses recalled heated confrontations between the former friends. Emails revealed accusations of betrayal. One message from Amir stood out among hundreds. "You took everything from me." The sentence was short, but it carried years of rage. Ryan began to understand how resentment could evolve into obsession. If Amir truly believed Daniel destroyed his life, every passing year might have deepened the wound rather than healed it. The emotional damage never ended. It simply waited. Armed with fresh leads, police traced financial activity linked to Amir's hidden accounts. The transactions eventually pointed toward a small rented property outside the city. For the first time, investigators had a location connected directly to the man they were hunting. A search warrant was obtained immediately. Before dawn, tactical officers surrounded the isolated building. Ryan stood nearby as the operation began. The front door was breached. Officers swept through room after room. Within minutes, the call came. The property was empty. Ryan entered moments later. Dust covered the furniture. The rooms showed signs of recent occupancy, but whoever lived there had left in a hurry. Then investigators discovered something important. A collection of travel documents hidden beneath loose floorboards. Laura examined them carefully. Her expression changed instantly. "What is it?" Ryan asked. She handed him a passport application, airline records, and immigration paperwork. Every document pointed to the same conclusion. Amir Rahman had abandoned the property just days after Daniel Cross's murder. And according to the records, he had boarded an international flight bound for Pakistan. The discovery of the travel documents answered one question and created many more. Amir Rahman had not simply disappeared after Daniel Cross's murder. He had escaped. Within hours of finding the records hidden beneath the floorboards, investigators confirmed the information through immigration databases. Amir entered Pakistan only days after Daniel's execution and then seemed to vanish completely. No return flights. No official records. No confirmed sightings. It was as though he had stepped off the plane and dissolved into thin air. Detective Ryan Cole immediately pushed for international assistance. Warrants were issued. Border agencies received alerts. Foreign authorities were notified. For a brief period, the case regained momentum. News outlets reported the dramatic developments. Headlines described a fugitive businessman who had faked his death, returned years later for revenge, and fled the country after committing murder. Public interest surged. Everyone wanted answers. Yet answers never came. Months passed without progress. Every reported sighting led nowhere. Anonymous tips produced dead ends. Investigators chased rumors across multiple countries only to discover mistaken identities. The trail remained cold. Eventually, the attention faded. New crimes replaced old headlines. Witnesses moved on. Even members of Daniel Cross's family stopped speaking publicly about the case. Only Ryan refused to let it go. The investigation became a permanent fixture in his life. Files filled shelves in his office. Photographs covered walls. Every lead, no matter how small, received his attention. His colleagues admired his dedication at first. Later, they worried about it. "You need a break," Laura Bennett told him one evening. Ryan barely looked up from the documents spread across his desk. "Not until I find him." Laura sighed. That was 3 years ago. Ryan remained silent. Deep down, he knew she was right. The case consumed everything. Birthdays were missed. Relationships faded. Vacations were cancelled. While the rest of the world continued forward, Ryan remained trapped inside the same mystery. Years passed. 5. Then 7. The files grew older. Witness memories weakened. Evidence deteriorated. Officially, the investigation remained open. Unofficially, most people considered it finished. Amir Rahman had won. At least that was how it appeared. 9 years after Daniel's murder, Ryan sat alone in a smaller office assigned to cold cases. The photographs on the wall had faded slightly with age. Dust settled on storage boxes stacked beside his desk. The hunt that once dominated headlines had become little more than a forgotten memory. Ryan was reviewing paperwork when a notification appeared on his computer screen. A new email. He almost ignored it. Most messages related to the case came from conspiracy theorists or people seeking attention. This one was different. No subject line. No identifying information. Only a single attachment. Ryan opened it cautiously. A photograph appeared. For several seconds, he simply stared. The image showed a crowded outdoor market somewhere overseas. Dozens of people moved through narrow streets lined with shops and vendors. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. Then Ryan saw him. Standing near a fruit stall. Older. Thinner. His hair touched with grey. But unmistakable. Amir Rahman. Alive. The photograph had clearly been taken recently. Ryan's pulse quickened as he enlarged the image. Before he could examine it further, his attention shifted to the bottom corner. A timestamp. The picture was less than 2 weeks old. For 9 years Amir had remained hidden. Now someone had deliberately revealed him. And whoever sent the photograph wanted Ryan to start looking again. The photograph changed everything. After 9 years of silence, Detective Ryan Cole finally had proof that Amir Rahman was alive. The image had reignited a case most people had forgotten, and Ryan had no intention of letting the opportunity disappear. Within weeks, international cooperation reopened the investigation. Analysts examined every detail of the photograph. Storefront signs, vehicle registrations, and architectural features were compared against thousands of locations. The answer eventually emerged. Karachi. For the first time in nearly a decade, Ryan knew where to look. The flight felt longer than any he had ever taken. As the aircraft descended over the sprawling city, Ryan stared through the window and thought about Daniel Cross, Sophia Malik, and the years that had vanished chasing a man everyone else had stopped searching for. Now the hunt was alive again. Karachi overwhelmed him immediately. The crowded streets pulsed with noise and movement. Vendors lined busy roads. Motorcycles weaved through traffic. Thousands of strangers passed one another every hour. It was the perfect place for someone to disappear. Working alongside local authorities, Ryan began tracing the location shown in the photograph. The investigation moved slowly at first. Several leads collapsed. Names turned out to be false. Addresses led nowhere. Then a breakthrough arrived. A local investigator uncovered records connected to a man named Arif Hassan. The identity appeared ordinary. Small business owner. No criminal history. No unusual financial activity. No reason to attract attention. Yet the photograph attached to the file showed a face Ryan immediately recognized. Amir Rahman. Older and weathered by time, but unmistakably the same man. For 9 years he had lived under another name. Ryan studied the records carefully. Arif Hassan rented a modest apartment, operated a small transportation business, and kept largely to himself. Neighbors described him as polite and quiet. The description felt surreal. Back home, investigators viewed Amir as a dangerous fugitive capable of murder. Here, he appeared almost invisible. Ryan spent several days conducting discreet surveillance. What he observed raised new questions. Amir followed a predictable routine. He opened his business each morning, visited local markets, and returned home before dark. Nothing about his behavior suggested a man actively evading capture. Yet something felt wrong. The caution remained. Ryan noticed Amir constantly checking reflections in windows and mirrors. He frequently altered walking routes. Sometimes he paused suddenly to scan crowds behind him. The habits were familiar. Years earlier, both Sophia Malik and Marcus Cross had described Daniel behaving exactly the same way. Watching, waiting, expecting danger. Ryan found the similarity disturbing. One evening, local authorities obtained access to a storage unit rented under Amir's false identity. Inside, investigators discovered old documents, photographs, and notebooks. Most related to his former life. Daniel's name appeared repeatedly. So did Sophia's. The obsession had never ended. But another discovery proved even more troubling. Several pages contained detailed notes describing Daniel's final months. Meetings, schedules, and locations were recorded with remarkable precision. Ryan examined the entries closely. Certain observations occurred at times when Amir could not have physically been present. The realization stopped him cold. Someone else had been gathering information. Someone helping him. The possibility grew stronger when investigators uncovered phone records connected to a burner device. Months before Daniel's murder, dozens of calls occurred between Amir and an unidentified number. The contact remained unknown, but the frequency was impossible to ignore. Late that night, Ryan sat alone reviewing the evidence. The timeline finally became clear. The surveillance, the planning, the ambush. No single person could have managed every detail alone. Ryan stared at the documents spread across the table. For years, everyone believed Amir Rahman executed his revenge by himself. Now the evidence pointed toward a different truth. Daniel Cross's murder had been a conspiracy. And somewhere, still hidden in the shadows, was the second person who helped make the execution possible. The discovery that Amir Rahman had not acted alone transformed the investigation once again. For years, Detective Ryan Cole had viewed the murder of Daniel Cross through a simple lens. Amir was the betrayed partner who returned from the dead seeking revenge. The theory fit the evidence well enough to survive nearly a decade. Now it was falling apart. Someone else had helped plan the execution. Someone with access to Daniel's private life. Someone close enough to know where he would be on the night he died. Back in his temporary office, Ryan spread every piece of evidence across a conference table. Phone records, financial reports, witness statements, surveillance logs, and photographs covered nearly every surface. The answer had to be there. He simply had not seen it yet. The breakthrough came while reviewing Daniel's final months in chronological order. Patterns emerged immediately. The anonymous emails. The threatening letters. The hidden meetings with Sophia Malik. The mysterious calls. Every major development seemed connected by one crucial detail. Information. Whoever assisted Amir possessed detailed knowledge about Daniel's schedule, relationships, and fears. Knowledge only an insider could provide. Ryan focused on the burner phone records recovered from Karachi. Analysts traced the unknown number through years of fragmented communication. Most data had been erased, but enough remained to build a rough timeline. The calls intensified whenever Daniel altered his routine. Whenever he met Sophia. Whenever investigators approached the truth. Someone had been feeding information directly to Amir. And that person had remained invisible for years. Ryan returned home and spent an entire night reviewing old witness interviews. Hundreds of hours of recordings filled his laptop. He watched them one after another. Family members. Business associates. Employees. Friends. Then he noticed something strange. One individual appeared repeatedly throughout the case. Not unusual on its own. The person had legitimate reasons to be involved. Yet every appearance carried subtle inconsistencies. Statements changed slightly over time. Details shifted. Facts contradicted earlier interviews. The more Ryan watched, the more uncomfortable he became. The lies were small enough to avoid detection. Until now. The following morning, financial investigators uncovered another crucial lead. Several transfers connected to shell companies linked to Amir had originated from domestic accounts. The transactions stretched back years. Someone had quietly funded portions of Amir's life after his disappearance. Someone inside Daniel's world. Ryan followed the money carefully. Each transaction led toward the same individual. His stomach tightened. The evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. Determined to confirm his suspicions, Ryan arranged a series of discreet interviews. Former colleagues, friends, and family members unknowingly provided the final pieces of the puzzle. A hidden relationship emerged. Secret meetings. Private conversations. Shared resentment toward Daniel. The conspiracy suddenly made sense. Amir supplied the obsession. The accomplice supplied access. Together they created the perfect trap. By evening, Ryan sat alone staring at the completed timeline. Every major question finally had an answer. The threatening messages. The surveillance. The carefully arranged meeting that ended in murder. None of it could have happened without help from inside Daniel's trusted circle. The realization felt devastating. Not because the mystery was solved. Because of who had solved it. Ryan opened a personnel file resting on his desk. His hands remained still for several moments. He had known this person for years. Worked alongside them. Trusted them. Shared evidence, theories, and frustrations throughout the investigation. The thought seemed impossible. Yet the evidence pointed nowhere else. Phone records connected the accomplice to Amir. Financial records confirmed support. Witness testimony established motive. Every path led to the same destination. Ryan finally looked down at the name printed across the file. A wave of disbelief washed over him. For nearly a decade, the second conspirator had stood beside the investigation itself, helping guide the search while secretly ensuring the truth remained buried. Ryan stared at the photograph. The accomplice was Detective Laura Bennett. His partner. His closest ally. And the one person he never suspected. The revelation about Laura Bennett shattered everything Ryan Cole believed about the investigation. For 9 years, she had stood beside him through every breakthrough, every setback, and every dead end. Together they chased Amir Rahman across continents while she secretly protected the truth. The betrayal felt personal. But before confronting Laura, Ryan needed answers from the man at the center of it all. Amir Rahman. 2 days later, local authorities arranged a controlled interview inside a secure facility in Karachi. The room was small and quiet. A single table separated Ryan from the fugitive he had spent nearly a decade pursuing. Amir looked older than the photographs. The years had carved deep lines into his face. Yet his eyes remained sharp. For several moments, neither man spoke. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. 9 years. Amir nodded. You never stopped looking. No. A faint smile crossed Amir's face. I knew you wouldn't. Ryan placed several photographs on the table. Daniel Cross. Sophia Malik. The abandoned parking lot. The ghosts of the past. Tell me what happened. Amir stared at the images. For the first time, the confidence seemed to leave him. He destroyed my life. Ryan expected the answer. What did Daniel do? Amir leaned back slowly. When the company started failing, someone needed to take the blame. Ryan listened carefully. Daniel moved money through accounts under my authority. He created documents that pointed everything toward me. You have proof. I found it too late. The bitterness in his voice felt genuine. He took my business. My reputation. My family. The room grew quiet. Years of anger seemed to pour from him with every sentence. My wife left. My friends disappeared. People treated me like a criminal before any court made a decision. Ryan understood the resentment. But resentment did not justify murder. You could have exposed him. Amir laughed without humor. No one would have believed me. The answer carried the weight of experience. For years, Daniel had been celebrated while Amir became a villain. Ryan glanced down at his notes. What about Sophia? Amir's expression darkened. She wasn't supposed to be involved. What does that mean? Daniel lied to her too. Ryan frowned. Lied about what? Amir hesitated. Then he spoke quietly. Daniel wasn't planning to leave his wife. The revelation surprised Ryan. He told Sophia otherwise. I know. Amir folded his hands. He promised different futures to different people. He manipulated everyone around him. The statement complicated everything. Daniel Cross had never been the innocent victim described during the early stages of the investigation. Nor was he the monster Amir portrayed. The truth lived somewhere in between. A flawed man whose choices damaged countless lives. Ryan studied Amir carefully. Did you kill him? The question lingered heavily in the air. Finally, Amir nodded. Yes. The confession arrived without resistance. No excuses. No denials. Just acceptance. I was there that night. Ryan felt years of uncertainty collapse into certainty. What happened? Amir stared at the tabletop. Daniel arrived expecting a conversation. And he realized too late it was a trap. The room fell silent again. Amir closed his eyes briefly. I pulled the trigger. The admission carried no satisfaction. Only exhaustion. Ryan looked at him for a long moment. 9 years of pursuit had led to this confession. The mystery should have felt solved. Instead, it felt incomplete. Because one question still remained. Why involve Laura? Amir's eyes opened slowly. A strange expression crossed his face. Almost pity. You still don't understand. Ryan's pulse quickened. What? Amir leaned forward. The years of anger suddenly seemed overshadowed by something darker. Something Ryan had not yet uncovered. I helped kill Daniel, Amir said quietly. But I was never the one in charge. Ryan stared at him. For the first time during the interview, genuine shock crossed his face. Amir held his gaze. The plan wasn't mine. The words landed like a hammer. If you want the truth, Ryan, stop looking at me. Amir's voice became almost a whisper. The mastermind behind Daniel Cross's murder was never me. Amir Rahman's final words followed Ryan Cole throughout the flight home. The mastermind behind Daniel Cross's murder was never me. For 9 years, Ryan had chased a single narrative. Betrayed business partner seeks revenge. Returns from the dead. Executes the man who ruined his life. Simple. Clean. Wrong. The deeper truth proved far more disturbing. Upon returning, Ryan immediately reopened every piece of evidence connected to Laura Bennett. What once appeared insignificant now carried new meaning. Phone records. Financial transfers. Interview inconsistencies. Every hidden detail strengthened the case against her. Eventually, the pressure became impossible to escape. Laura agreed to meet. The interview room felt strangely familiar. For years she had sat beside Ryan questioning suspects. Now she occupied the opposite side of the table. Neither spoke for several moments. Finally, Ryan placed the evidence before her. It's over. Laura stared at the documents. The fight slowly disappeared from her eyes. You figured it out. Ryan nodded. Why? The question carried years of frustration. Years of trust. Years of betrayal. Laura looked down at her hands. The answer emerged quietly. Because Daniel destroyed everything. Ryan remained silent. She continued. Years before becoming a detective, Laura's older sister worked for Daniel and Amir's company. During the financial scandal, she became entangled in the investigation. Public accusations ruined her reputation. Depression followed. Months later, she took her own life. Ryan felt a chill move through him. Laura's voice trembled. Nobody cared whether she was guilty. They just needed someone to blame. For years, Laura blamed Amir. Then she discovered evidence suggesting Daniel manipulated portions of the investigation to protect himself. The discovery consumed her. Anger evolved into obsession. Obsession became revenge. When Amir resurfaced after the warehouse fire, she secretly contacted him. Two damaged people united by hatred. The consequences proved devastating. Laura provided information. Amir provided motivation. Together they built the plan. The anonymous messages. The surveillance. The manipulation. Every step pushed Daniel toward the parking lot where his life would end. What happened that night? Ryan asked. Laura closed her eyes briefly. The plan was supposed to scare him. Ryan frowned. Amir confessed. I know. Tears appeared in her eyes. But things changed. According to Laura, Daniel arrived expecting a private conversation. The confrontation escalated immediately. Old betrayals resurfaced. Years of anger exploded. Then came the gunshots. 7 of them. A moment of rage that could never be undone. The room fell silent. For the first time, Ryan understood the complete tragedy. Nobody emerged innocent. Daniel manipulated people. Amir surrendered to revenge. Laura abandoned justice. Each decision pushed the next. Each betrayal created another wound. The murder was not born in a parking lot. It was born years earlier through greed, lies, and resentment. The arrests followed quickly. Laura Bennett was charged for her role in the conspiracy. International proceedings secured Amir's extradition. The case that haunted Ryan for nearly a decade finally approached its conclusion. News coverage returned briefly before fading again. This time, however, the public received answers. Daniel Cross was no longer remembered as a flawless victim. Nor was Amir Rahman viewed solely as a monster. The truth proved far more complicated. Lives had been destroyed on every side. Months later, Ryan attended the final hearing. As the proceedings ended, he experienced something unfamiliar. Relief. The burden he carried for years had finally lifted. Justice, imperfect as it was, had arrived. Yet justice carried a price. Emma Cross lost the husband she thought she knew. Sophia Malik spent years grieving a future built on lies. Marcus Cross remained trapped by old family wounds. Amir and Laura would spend the remainder of their lives facing consequences for choices they could never reverse. No one truly won. That evening, Ryan returned to his office to close the final case file. He expected the moment to feel satisfying. Instead, it felt strangely empty. As he prepared to archive the evidence, a technician entered carrying a small storage device recovered from Daniel's old belongings. We found this during inventory. Ryan accepted it absent-mindedly. What is it? Looks like an audio recording. Curious, Ryan inserted the device into his computer. The recording began immediately. Static filled the speakers. Then voices emerged. Daniel's voice. Another voice. Amir's. Ryan listened carefully. The conversation appeared to have been recorded shortly before the murder. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then he heard something impossible. A third voice. A person neither Daniel nor Amir acknowledged during their confessions. The unidentified speaker gave instructions. Specific instructions. About where to meet. About when to arrive. About what would happen next. Ryan froze. The voice was distorted beyond recognition. The recording ended abruptly seconds later. No names. No explanation. Only questions. For 9 years Ryan searched for the truth. He exposed conspirators. Solved the murder. Closed the case. Yet as he stared at the dark computer screen, a terrible realization settled over him. Someone involved in Daniel Cross's execution had never been identified. And if that voice belonged to a hidden participant, then one crucial detail remained buried forever. The case was officially closed. But the full truth might never be known.